Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on authentication and authorization with the MERN stack. So we're going to be using JWT tokens to do so. So I have an example here. So this is a regular form with a login and a register. It is connected to a MongoDB, the MongoDB database. And if you say username, so let's register first. Let's register a new username. So we're going to say test YouTube, and we're going to say the password is test, and the email is going to be test at testyoutube at test.com. And as you can see, it says registration complete. Let's cancel that. So if you look here, it's going to say user registration is successful, and upon doing so, it routes you to the login. So now we can say test, I believe we called it YouTube, test YouTube. Password was test YouTube at test.com. Let's make sure that's what we had. What was the payload? Username was test YouTube. Test email test YouTube at, okay, so if we log in, it takes us to the home page, and that's it. So we're going to be using cookies from on the back end, JWT tokens. What else? JWT tokens, and MongoDB, basically the MERN stack to create this. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to section all this into parts so it's not super long. So it's going to be a little bit shorter every part. Well, every part's going to be a decent length, just so everything's not too long. So let's get started. Okay, so to begin, what we're going to do is install Express, um, .env, cores, and mongoose. So those are the dependencies that we need to install first, and then as we go along, we're going to do that. So on my right hand side here, we're going to be using Postman to as our environment, as our testing environment. So I'm not going to build out the client side yet. I'm just going to build out the server side. So right now we have a server side Node.js with Express working, and we're just going to be building the back end part to begin with. So we're going to have this, and then over here in the server, over here we just have the regular index.js file, which is this, and our packages. So and our package.json. So in this server, what we're going to do is do a new folder, and we're going to call this models, or model. Let's just say model. A rename. I'm gonna call it model. This is where we're gonna put our user model for MongoDB, and then we're gonna come here again and then say new folder, and we're gonna call this routes. This is where we're gonna house our routes, and one more. Actually, this should not really be capital. So rename. We're gonna call this model and routes. So in model, and then now we're gonna make another folder, and we're gonna call it our controller. So that's just setting up our server side folder. So if you come over here to the index.js, now that we have this, we have Express, we're just gonna start the server, and also don't forget to get a nodes nodemon. So if I come over here to package.json, as you can see, I have my start with nodemon index.js. So these, if you want to quickly pause the screen, these are all the dependencies I have. If you just want to pause it and take a look at it, some of them we're not using immediately, so I didn't mention them, but this is what we're using. So hopefully you were able to get that. Now, if you come back to index.js, we're going to say app.listen, and you should know how to do this part already based on the other projects we've worked on. So if you're having any problems with this, you can go back to my more beginner-friendly project like the Marvel one, and it'll explain more in detail what I'm doing here. So port, and then we're going to say host name. For the port, we're going to call it 5001. Host name is going to be localhost, comma this, and we're going to say console.log the server is running. Let's save that. Let's just make everything look nice and tidy. npm run start. As you can see, the server's running. So the server's running on localhost 5001. So now what we want to do is connect our MongoDB to this. So if I come here, I already have a MongoDB. Where is it? I already have a MongoDB project up, but we can create another one. So we're just going to say new project. Oh, and before we do that, let's just do this .env, because we're going to be putting our credentials in here. And remember, over here, we already required .env, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So now, if we go back to MongoDB, we're just going to call this we're just going to call it auth YouTube, auth YT, auth underscore YT. You can call it whatever you want. Let's just show it. And then create project. So rather than, we're just going to hit build database. I use the free. This project just doesn't require all this, just put free. And then we're going to hit create. Let's see. So for username, I'm just going to call it my name. For the password, yeah, username, I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it something. Password, I'm going to call it something else. So let's just use username this. Password, I'm going to change it from that, but I'm not going to show you guys what it is. I'm going to put everything in the .env. I just want to show you what it looks like. So when you do that, you're going to hit add my current IP address. I'm not going to show you what my IP address is, but it's going to say add my current IP address, and then you're going to finish and close. I'm going to forward over to where to basically when this is done, and I'll catch you guys after I finish setting all this up. Right, so we have our database created. So now what we want to do is connect, and we're going to be using the driver to connect to our application. So if you click this, just go all the way down, and we're just going to copy this and close, and then come back over here. And what we want to do is let's just paste this here for right now. And as you can, so I'm just going to run through this. So this password part right here, we just got to take that out and plug in what we saved as the password when we created this. So I'm just going to plug that in here, and then we're going to take all this and put it into .env, just to because we're putting all our credentials there. So we're putting this into .env, and then we're going to get it and put it back in here in our mongoose.connect. So I'm just going to put this in .env and set it up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we went ahead and put that into .env. So what we're going to do now is say const mongodb is equal to is equal to process.env.mongodb. I believe that's what I called it. Yep, that's what I called it in the backend. I said in the backend. That's what I call it in the .env file. So I called it MongoDB. So we're just going to call it that. So we're going to say const MongoDB is equal to this. Or we could just leave it at the same thing. It doesn't matter. So we can just call it the same thing. So it doesn't really matter. Let's just do that. So now we're going to say mongoose.connect. And we're going to transfer that in there. But now we want to see if this is truly connected to the database. So what we can do is write this piece of logic in there and say then arrow function console.log the database, the DB is connected. Save that, and then here we can say catch error and console.log error. If we save that, let's see if it's truly connected. Yep, it says our database is connected. So now we know we have a link with our database. So there's a link now. So we can just put this away for right now. And since we have this so far, what we want to do is come into our model and just name this user, yeah, user.js. Yeah, that's fine. So we're gonna say const mongoose is equal to require mongoose. Cool. Oh, mongoose. Cool. And now we're gonna make the schema for our uh, for our uh, for our database to put stuff into our database. So we're gonna say const. Oh, so we're gonna say const user schema. We're just gonna call it that is equal to mongoose dot schema. Cool. And we're gonna say username. So we're gonna have a username, password, and an email. You don't have to have all three, but that's the route I'm going. So if you just want to follow along, that's fine. But you can just grasp the idea behind it and build it out your way. So we're gonna say type is string and require is true. Cool. So now we're gonna go on to password and make sure I just like to keep everything lowercase just so there's no we don't have a problem with the type of casing it is um, in the future. So if everything's lowercase, it's just easy to remember how you wrote it. So require this, and it's going to say true. And then here also with the email, we're going to say type is string, require is true. There's a problem somewhere. There it is. Requires true. So now what we just did is create the schema. So when we have a username, we want to make sure the type is string, and we want to always require that anytime you send something to this to the database, anytime a form, let's say you fill out the form and you have the username, password, and you forget this part, it's not going to accept it because it needs all three to come in at once. And now we want to date it. So anytime something's put in, we want to make sure it has a date attached to it. So we're going to say timestamp, timestamp is equal to timestamps is equal to true. So that would give it a timestamp for everything we put in there. And now we just want to go down and say const user, I'm going to make it capitalized, is equal to mongoose dot schema. Oh, dot model, sorry. Dot model. And it's going to say, we're going to name it user, lowercase, and we're going to name it, and we're going to say, we're going to give it the name of the schema. So we're going to name this model user, and we're going to give the what we named the schema, which is user schema. Cool. Now we want to export everything. So module that exports is equal to user, just this right here. That's what we're exporting. Cool. So we have the MongoDB part pretty much set. So if we go down, let's just close out of this. Let's close out of that. So now we want to create our routes. So we want to say const this should actually be up here. So now we want to use actually. So we'll since we have a routes folder, we'll just do that. So let's come down to routes, and we're gonna name our first route auth. We're just gonna name the route auth.js. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna say const express. So we will end up using this model in our routes, but right now, actually we'll end up using it in our controller, not necessarily a route. Our controller is going to be connected to our routes. So const express is equal to require express, but let's just set this up. And now we're going to say const auth route is equal to express.router. Cool. Now it's module.export is equal to auth route. Cool. So now we come back in here and get that route. So we're just going to call it the same thing again, doesn't matter. Is equal to require. What's wrong somewhere? So const out route is equal to, did I spell something wrong? So that's require. There we go. And we're going to say routes / auth. There we go. So now we're going to use that route. Actually, first let's put all this middleware in. Let's say app.use core. Well, you didn't install cores yet, so let's use the one we already have. So we're gonna say app.use app.use express.json. So let's do that first. Cool. And now we're just gonna say app.use. Oh yeah, let's get cores. So let's get cores. So const cores, make sure you require cores and install it, and then say app.use cores. So let's just get that out the way. So let's just do that. And now for the route, we're gonna say app.use. We're gonna make it /auth, and we're gonna say it's app auth route. So we're gonna name it this constant here. We're gonna bring this constant and bring it back down. But the path for this route is gonna be /auth. Hopefully I'm not losing anyone. It's a little bit harder to explain where you're not actually seeing the person you're talking to. So I'm kind of jumping around a bit here. So const auth require. So we're requiring this auth, and then for the path, we're gonna call it /auth. That's the route that's associated with this route that we just built out. So this is the browser route that so when you say, let's say HTTP localhost 5001 /auth, that's what this is. That's what this route is. So it pertains to this. So anything with this route is associated with this /auth. Cool. So now we're gonna create so the first thing we're gonna do in this video, or what this part of the video is gonna be mostly the login portion of the video. So we're gonna say so we're gonna say auth route. So we're gonna say auth route dot post. So we're posting. This is gonna be a post method, and it's gonna be posted to /login. So actually /register. So this is gonna be register first. So let's do the register and then we log in. So we're doing this is gonna be the register portion of the video, or this whole video probably was just gonna be register. So we're gonna do that, and then we're just gonna keep this empty for right now. This is where our controller is gonna be put. So now let's go into controller, and we're gonna say new file, and we're gonna call this register.js. Actually, no. The controller is gonna control everything, so the folder is gonna be the whole controller. So let's just say auth controller.js. So we're gonna say const mongoose is equal to require goose, and here's gonna say const user, which pertains to this user model, user.js. And it's gonna say require dot and then / model / user. Cool. So these are the two main files we're going to be using right now. And we're going to say X, since this is the controller, we can just say exports dot, and we're going to be making a register is equal to async rec res next. Cool. So we're gonna have this, and now what we're gonna say is const username, password, email is equal to request.body. So if you go back to the user.js, you can see in our schema, those are the three main things we're requiring. We need, not necessarily requiring, but these are the three main things in our schema. So when I say requiring, I don't mean like this require. I mean we're asking for, in our schema, to build out our form. We need the username. I mean, to build out our database, we need the username, the password, and the email. So we're going to be we're going to have to get this from the body of the front end, from the body which is coming from our front end. We didn't build that yet, hence why we're going to be using Postman. But we're going to need it uh, in our while building this application out. So the way we represent it is say const username, password, and email is going to be requested from the body. So that's what we're saying here. And now we want to do something called, for this password here, we want to do something called hashing it. So if you, let's see if I still have my database. Which database is this? Okay, so if I go back to my original database, the one I have for my personal project, for the project I showed you, if we browse to this collection, you will see that if, let's say, a hacker came into my database, and they try and get the password. As you can see, this password is encoded. It's not something that's going to be easily uh, understood. So looking at this, you can't understand this. This doesn't actually mean anything without it being decoded. So how do we go about doing that? So now let's go back to auth YouTube. So how do we go about doing that? Cool. So what we want to do is do something called hashing the password. So we're going to call this hashed password, just because that's what it's doing. And we're gonna be using something called bcrypt. So we're gonna say const bcrypt is equal to require, and I'm gonna call it bcrypt. This probably is going to crash because I don't remember if I installed that. So just to make sure, this is how we go about it: npm install bcrypt, the same way it's spelled. So npm install bcrypt. Yeah, I don't think we installed that in the first place. So clear npm run start again, and it's running again. So what we're gonna say is await. So just make sure you have a sync here, because this is an asynchronous function. So await, you're gonna be awaiting a promise. So await bcrypt dot hash. So this is just the syntax for it, bcrypt.hash, and you're going to be throwing in this password here that you get from the body. So this is what you're hashing, and you're going to put 10. Now the number is I think the salt that's going to be generated. It's right here. The salt to be used in encryption is specified as a number, then the salt will be generated with the specified number of rounds and used. I don't really go much into that. I just know this is the syntax for it. So if you want to more knowledge on that, you can like look it up also. But I know it has to do with the salt, and we're just gonna say password, comma 10. So now what do we do with this? So before we go on, what we're gonna say is we're going to give the user, we're gonna give this we're gonna give a variable called user. Const user is equal to await user, which is this user model, user dot find one, and I'm just going to explain what this does. So dot find one email. So what you're saying here is const user, this user, we're finding for this user, we're finding, actually let's yeah, let's say find, and then we're going to say username, not email. So username. So for this user, we're looking for the username within our where is it? within our database. So if we browse collections, as you can see, there's nothing in there yet. So nothing has been like done. So, but if we look at mine, the one from my original, you will see that um, if I wanted to find this user, and I can find just the username. So I can say find one username. So it's gonna look through here and find the username based on the parameters I'm giving it. So I'm finding one, where is it? I'm finding one username. So, and I'm also gonna look for the user email. So everything will make sense in a second. So find user email, let's just put this down. Find user email is equal to await. Same thing, user dot find one, and this is going to be email. Cool. So we're going to do that. So now this is the logic behind all of that. We're going to say, we're going to put everything here in a try catch, and we're going to say, if there's no username, so remember these are just outside of this function. So we're gonna pull from this later on. So we're gonna say if there's no username, or there's no password, or there's no email, which are the three fields we ask for. Then we want to say return res.status 400.json, which the message being attached to it would be provide credentials. So let's say you don't have a username, or you don't have a password, or you don't have an email. These are all three required fields. So if you have one but not two, but not the other two, you have two but not the last one, or you just have one or the other, uh, then it's not going to let you pass. It's not going to let you register, is what I'm trying to say. So you cannot register into the database because you're missing at least one of the credentials. So now if you're missing all three, it definitely won't let you pass. But as long as you're missing just a minimum of one, it's going to give you this status of 400. And if we Google that really quickly and say google.com, what is error code 400? So it's going to tell you the server cannot or will not process the request due to something that's perceived to be a client error. Meaning, like I said earlier, in our front end, we're going to be filling out that form that says username, password, and email. If we send just one of those fields, then the problem's coming from the client side. It's coming from the browser side, meaning you did not pass in the rest of the stuff that's needed, that it's being asked for, that's being required. So I hope that makes sense. So we're just putting this in a if, in a try catch, in order to catch the error, if there's an error. So here we're going to say return. So don't forget the return, to return it, to stop the function, to end the function. So return this, and that's going to be that. Now we're also going to say if, now we're going to be using this user. So if user, if there is a user under the username, so if you look for a username, a specific username, and that user is there, so you're going to return res.json, with the message of please log in. And to understand why we're doing that, it's because remember, you're trying to register, not log in. So if you're trying to register, why should the database be able to find your username? That means you already have an account in the system. Because remember, the username can't just take a username, it has to take all three. And having all three in the database means you're already registered. So if it can find one username, that means it can find the password and it can find the email. So you're completely registered. So if it's able to find your username, it's going to return please log in. Also, if it's able to find your email, it's going to say the same thing. So you can say if username, so let's just come here also and say else if username, user email. So we're doing the same. It's the same logic for the user email. Return res.json with the message of where is it? Message of please log in, and just gonna make it the same thing. Cool. All right. And it's not necessarily gonna be. I think is it a 403 or something like that? It will be unauthorized. I believe is the status, but I don't remember what the status code would be for that. So I think it would be 403. I'm not too sure, so I didn't put it in, but it's something we can easily like check up on later if like you want to know. It's not that serious. This is not going into development. It's just to let you guys understand what's going on. So now after that, what we're gonna do is say we're still within this where is it with this try method. So we're gonna say const new user is equal to new user. So this user pertains to the user model here, and this const is just a variable name. New user is equal to new user. Now we're gonna say new user parentheses in the bracket. I'm gonna say username, password, but instead of just passing password now, we're gonna be passing password as hashed password because we want to make sure it's encrypted. So it's gonna be hash password and then the email, and then we're gonna save that. So in order to finish it out, we're gonna say new user dot save, and now we can say res.json is with the message of new user registration complete. So now I'm gonna come over to routes, and I'm gonna add that controller over here and call it register, and you can see it imported right there. So if we go back to index.js and come in and now come to Postman, we can now say HTTP 5000 HTTP localhost 5001, because this is the port number here, 5001 backslash. Remember this route is /auth, so we're going to say /auth slash. Now if we go back to this route, it's going to say /register, so it's going to be /register. Cool. And now if I so this isn't, if you just press enter, which I just did accidentally, if you press enter, it's just going to keep saying send in request. This is not a get method, it's a post method. So you have to go to post, and then let's see how we can stop this. Let's just refresh this, reload. Yeah, so let's change this to post first, and then I guess we just got to type it in all over again. Localhost 5001 /auth/register. So if we go to the body and we put raw JSON, we're gonna say username parentheses username, and remember the username, we're just, well, the username is just whatever the username is. So I'm just gonna say test YouTube. This one I'm gonna say password. How can I spell is test, and email is going to be is going to be test YouTube at test.com. Oh, not saved. So now if we send this, so let's make this split again. So if I just press enter, oops, something's wrong somewhere. Let's see, where is it? Where? Can't find email. Okay, so this should not be capitalized. Sorry. Remember when I was saying keep everything lowercase? That's the reason why. So we can try it again. And as you can see, we get that message, user registration is complete. I wish we got it the first time, make it look cool, but we'll take it the second time. So now it says message user registration complete. So if I go over to my MongoDB, let's make this bigger. Sorry, I'm only using one screen, so kind of have to squish everything up here. So I go to user and I refresh this. So as you can see, this is already created as users, and this is my this is the user I just registered. As you can see, it says username is test YouTube. The password has been hashed for us. The email is testyoutube@test.com, and it gives us the timestamp at which it was created. So that's pretty much it for the registration portion of the application. So we're going to work on the login portion in the next one. So stay tuned for that one. It should be posted pretty soon. See you guys on the next one.